Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Flash Talk. Today, we're joined by a special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, thank you, Sarah. So, my name is Sharon Wohl. I'm the Associate Dean in the College of Architecture and Environmental Design here at Kent State.
Thank you for being with us today. So, today's topic is the Cleveland based masters that Kent State offers. These are urban design and landscape. And these are held at the Cleveland Urban Design Collective. So, first, can you tell us what exactly is the Cleveland Urban Design Collective?
So, yeah, the Cleveland Urban Design Collaborative. It's actually a Kent State unit that is based in Cleveland, and they've been around for 25 years. They work with communities, they look at design issues, and they really involve community engagement in trying to deliver projects that help empower communities, that work with communities in order to, just really support that environment.
Mhm.
And so they've been around doing a lot of projects and really trying to make that impact in terms of cities and neighborhoods that are otherwise, sometimes more disenfranchised, I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome that they can work so closely with those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So how does this collaborative relate to the programs that Kent State offers?
Right, right. And so this is interesting because, and I will start by saying a little bit that I've only been at Kent State for just over a year,
Mhm.
and one of the things that actually really attracted me to Kent State was the existence of the Cleveland Urban Design Collaborative. I'm interested in urban design. I have a background in architecture, but I went on to work in urban fields, and so it was really exciting to me that there was this opportunity. And so we call it the CUDC. It's a Kent State unit,
Mhm.
and they are based in Cleveland in Playhouse Square. And so right in the heart of the city, really vibrant environment. And then co-located with the CUDC are a number of our programs that have an affiliation with urban issues. So we have our urban design students are located there, and we also have a landscape architecture program that's located there for the Master of Landscape Architecture students. And in addition, we have a Masters of Architecture program, and the majority of the students are here at Kent State. But if students are more interested in doing a Master's of Architecture degree that has a focus on urban issues, then they can do what's called an urban emphasis Master's of Architecture. And
Mhm.
so those students are also located at that Kent-based facility. So it's one large area in Playhouse Square, beautiful studio space and offices for the CUDC. And so they're affiliated with one another. There's some overlaps between them, but we have the staff that's at the CUDC. Some of them are involved sometimes with teaching courses or doing a community engagement charrette, which is a short intensive course that's offered annually.
Mhm.
And then the students work there as well on their studio project. And then there's some shared meeting spaces, shared gallery spaces, so we can host exhibitions there, we can host lectures there that relate both to the work of the CUDC and the broader design community in Cleveland, as well for our students in the programs.
Perfect. Thank you. I see we have a few viewers joining us, so if you have any questions as we go throughout this event, please feel free to post a comment on YouTube and we will see this. Actually, we do have a question. Sharon, would you like to take a brief stop and we'll answer this one? So,
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. So the question, I have my first degree in construction technology and electrical. Can I apply for an architecture for my master's degree? And the answer is yes. So we have, in addition to the programs that we offer in Cleveland at the CUDC, we have a full slate of graduate programs at the Kent campus. So one of them is our Master's of Architecture degree. And we actually have three different tracks for that degree. So we have students who've already gone through the bachelor's program at Kent. They have an accelerated pathway to get their master's because they've already completed a number of the required courses to get an accredited professional degree, which means you can become registered, you have an architecture stamp once you've passed those examinations post-graduation, but it's the pathway to an accredited degree. So that's for our Kent-based students. But if you don't have an architecture degree, then you can apply to come into our 3-year program. And so that is a degree for people who have an undergraduate in a non-design topic and they go through in a well, still a shorter pathway than our undergrad. In 3 years, they wind up with a master's degree in architecture. So that takes about 100 credit hours. It's 3 years of focused study. And then we also have an intermediary solution, which is for students who maybe have a design background, a bachelor's degree from another institution, some prior experience, then we offer a kind of halfway point where there's a 2-year program for those graduate students. And then we look at their prior degrees to determine which courses we feel they've already taken. So for example, someone who has construction technology, we might waive an intro to building structures class because they might have that background. So we would still be requiring them to do the full studio sequence because that design sequence takes 3 years to complete. But
Mhm.
because they have some of the technology courses, then those would be removed from the curriculum, allowing a lighter load as they're going through. Great
Perfect.
question.
Thank you
And
so
if
much.
people have questions about
Mhm.
our master's programs, they can also go to our website, or contact our graduate student advisor and we can post those contact pieces in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So returning to our discussion of the programs at the CUDC, can you tell me a little bit more about the Master of Landscape Architecture program and what makes it unique?
Yeah, great. So we have a really, really wonderful Master of Landscape Architecture program. Again, with that program, it's similar to what I was just describing for architecture in that there's both a 3-year professional program and there's a 2-year professional program. And the 2-year professional program is for people who are already coming in with a design background, but they want to go ahead and get that Master's of Landscape Architecture. The 3-year program, someone who's just decides later in life, after going through another degree, that they really like the idea of doing landscape architecture, then in 3 years, we can take you from those fundamentals, introductory studios, and get you to that professional degree. We are a small program, but we are punching above our weight, I would say. Our students have been doing so, so well. We are a program in Ohio that our students are consistently winning both statewide awards, and they're winning national awards. So we had a
Mhm.
student last year who received the National Olmsted Award, Olmsted Award, which is a very prestigious award. So the students really get wonderful skills. We have fabulous faculty who are teaching. And I would say what's one of the things that makes it distinct is that there's a real urban focus to the landscape program. So some of the landscape programs in the state focus more on sort of the rural dimension of
Mhm.
landscape architecture. But because we are based in Cleveland, we're really interested in issues around urban watersheds, brownfield sites, restoration, reclamation of land in the city, and how there can be this dovetailing between the urban issues and the landscape issues, and that good landscape architecture can really help make good urban places. And
Mhm.
so that co-location as well between our urban students and our landscape students means that those students are on occasion in studios together and are in some of the courses together. So there's a really nice cross-fertilization between the two disciplines. The other thing that I can say that's unique is that we have a wonderful studio called the Index Studio. And this studio is done collaboratively between the urban design students and the landscape students. And they go to, what they do is they take a look at Cleveland, a site in Cleveland, try to study it, analyze it. But while they're doing that, they're also simultaneously looking at a site in another city someplace else in the world. So we've
Mhm.
had Index Studio partnerships with cities in with Havana, with Beirut, with Medellin, Curitiba, and Querétaro. And in all those occasions, we've partnered with other universities with students there. There are opportunities for students to go and travel there, and that travel is very often quite heavily subsidized in order to make it
Wow.
possible for our students to go. And
Mhm.
so what's happening is that the students are able to kind of see that indexing of particular factors in that Cleveland environment and compare it to other cities, but look at a common problem in both of those cities. So it's a really interesting opportunity to get that broader global perspective.
Yeah, that's really amazing that they have such a worldwide reach for this program. That's great, especially for our international students. That might be a big focus for them. So what are some unique benefits and features for students completing a master's degree at one of our Cleveland programs? You talked a little bit about how successful they tend to be and how global the reach is. Is there
Right.
anything else you'd like to add?
I think that, I mean, it's just really wonderful to have that opportunity to be in the city.
Mhm,
So, I mean, I love Kent. I love our
mhm.
college campus. I think it's wonderful, but sometimes it's a nice opportunity to be in a larger city
Yep.
itself. And as I said, I've only been here for just over a year. I love Cleveland. I think it's a really, really interesting city. I think it's very interesting from an architectural and urban design standpoint, and also very interesting from a landscape standpoint. I mean, the whole Metro Parks initiative and the fact that there's a ring of green that surrounds Cleveland and the relationship to the lake and the watershed, and the whole history of the Cuyahoga River. All of these things are really, really interesting issues to engage with. So, going to college and studying in a college campus town when ultimately you're going to be going and probably for most students are going to be ultimately living in larger cities. The kinds of issues that pertain to Cleveland, I think, really pertain to most major cities in North America. We have the shift from a more industrialized society to post-industrial. We have climate issues. We've got climate migration potentials. And so all of these things are opportunities in Cleveland that our students get firsthand exposure to. I think they also are able to foster really great relationships with the professional communities in Cleveland. The professionals come out to events, they assist with what we have in our graduate programs, which is our critic sessions. So students pin up their work, they get professionals who are in the field, and we have that closer contact with those professionals because they're right there.
Mhm,
Students also have opportunities to volunteer with various events, student groups, and professional associations in Cleveland that maybe they have closer access to. The other thing is that at the CUDC itself, we have our own lecture series that's located there. So we have a wonderful lecture series on our Kent campus, and we have a lecture series at the Cleveland site as
mhm,
well. Students can still check in remotely to our Kent-based lectures, so we try to make sure that they're not missing out. But they have that added bonus of the lecture series that's in Cleveland, as
mhm,
well as the space that they are in has got an exhibition space. So currently there's an exhibition that's mounted. We have different exhibitions that come through at various times.
mhm.
There's also a focused library within the space that pertains to urban and landscape issues. So we really try to support the students. We have great relationships with Cleveland State. So we've done some partnerships with them.
Mhm.
In fact, last year, our students who are in the urban emphasis, urban design program, they partnered with some of the students at Cleveland State, and they were entering what's called the Urban Land Institute ULI Hines competition, and that's a national competition in art. And that group was one of the awardees within that competition. So they had an opportunity to have some cross fertilization with students at Cleveland State. They have opportunities to take some courses with students at Cleveland State as well.
That's
So really,
amazing.
I think it just really it just gives a real, different tone to the education, a
Mhm.
different vibe being in the city. The students who are there right now are really, really enjoying it.
Yeah.
They like we have and I will say, we have a beautiful, beautiful building,
Mhm.
at Kent State. The
It's
architecture
one of my
building, if you
favorites.
haven't been
Yeah.
there, is a
Mhm,
gorgeous building.
mhm,
Um, but our site in Cleveland is wonderful too because it's got that really nice, warehousey vibe. The students who move in, they really feel like they make it their own. There's a bit more space to kind of spread out. There's that sense that there's an office that's right there that's working on projects that you have a chance to brush up against.
mhm.
And so I think the students really enjoy that whole different kind of atmosphere. The other thing that I can say is that the CUDC will often work with some of our students who have a graduate assistantship, and so they can be employed not only working as research assistants or teaching assistants with our faculty, but also as research assistants or project assistants with the CUDC. So that provides them
Wow.
this really nice exposure to the world of practice. And I think that sometimes students feel like there's this really sharp division between being in school and then what it's like to be in practice. So
Mhm.
being right there alongside the CUDC is really wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. Just a reminder for our viewers joining us, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat and we'll be happy to answer those for you. So why should students choose Kent State when considering a degree in architecture and environmental design?
Oh, wow, lots of great reasons. I mean, I think it is um, well, let's say maybe great bang for your buck
Mm.
in some senses. I think that we're a very affordable option that really delivers an extremely strong education. So we have absolutely wonderful, wonderful faculty. We have a really strong program. The architecture program director, Sung Ho Kim, is just an outstanding educator, practitioner. And we have really incredible faculty who come from, the all the schools that are sort of on the tips of students' tongues, but are much, much more costly to attend. We have those faculty who are working with us and who are supporting students. And so the education, I think, is extremely strong. But I think the other thing that really makes us distinctive is just that it's a very kind, warm, caring atmosphere.
Definitely.
We
Mhm.
are, it's one of the reasons that I came to Kent State was that I just felt that the people here are really wonderful. They
Mhm.
genuinely care about the students. Our student advisors are wonderful, and I would say everyone throughout the institution, regardless of whether it's a faculty member who's working with you or the dean or the provost or the president, there is a sense that there is a real element of care in terms of the student's education. And
Mhm.
I think that, that translates into tangible and intangible qualities. So some of it is that we really support student travel. There are other universities where there are these sort of study abroad opportunities where students can go for a few weeks or to another location, but it becomes exclusive that only the students who can afford it are able to do it. Whereas we really attempt to make these things much more accessible to all of our student body.
Mhm.
And I think that's really wonderful. I think there's a real sensitivity to what our students need. We also have wonderful career fairs for our students to ensure that they are ready to kind of hit the ground running, that they've got great job opportunities that are lined up for them
Wow.
while they're still going through the program,
Mhm.
internship opportunities. And so yeah, I mean, and then if they're coming, of course, to the Kent campus, there's the wonderful building, which
Right.
is
It's
great to
so
be studying
beautiful.
in
Yeah,
an
I love it.
environment
Mhm.
that's a beautiful place that you can
Mhm.
say, "Well, this is where I get to come to work every day."
Mhm.
And I think we have a really strong studio culture. Students learn from one another, and so being in an environment where there's a lot of both people there working, and we also have a lot of hands-on making, which
Mhm.
I think is unique. A lot of programs they've moved much more into the digital world where they're working on computers
Right.
and they're losing that sort of tactile to connection to
Mhm.
the projects. And I think that culture of making is something that we are doing really, really well right now
Mhm.
in our architecture programs.
Perfect. Thank you. So since our audience is primarily international students, do you have any tips or advice for international students who plan to apply?
Oh gosh, I mean, so I will say we will help you through the process. So you can go to the website to look at the programs, and then once you reach out to us and start that application, our graduate student advisor will really try to understand how to help you specifically. And the person who we have working in the college has a really, really strong awareness of the issues confronting international students
Mhm.
and can really respond empathetically and also tactically to help you navigate a lot of the hoops that you have to go through. So I'll say we create a supportive environment. The other thing that we will do is that, if you're coming and you've got a background in design, we will really carefully look at what is the degree that makes sense for you and what is the pathway that makes sense for you, because
Mhm.
we know that there is the curriculum and we can be really rigid with that curriculum, or we can look at you as an individual and say, okay, what curriculum makes sense for you? And we're
Mhm.
happy to do that. The other thing that we're happy to do is that, we have a number of these amazing programs in our college. We have construction management, architecture, urban design, landscape, healthcare design, masters of science in architecture and environmental design. Sometimes students want more than one thing, or
Mhm.
they start off thinking they want one thing, and then they realize, actually, I want something a little bit different. So we'll help you understand that, and will help determine, maybe it's a dual degree that you're looking for, a dual
Yeah.
master's. Maybe for you it's a longer pathway that you need in order to complete. Maybe for some of you it's a shorter pathway that you want to take our programs that normally we anticipate. A lot of our master's programs are 2 years,
Mhm.
but for some of them, we can figure out ways. Well, maybe it's a spring start for you, or we concentrate the electives a little bit more tightly. So we're really happy to work with you and figure out what makes sense, as opposed to saying, okay, this is what the degree looks like. If you don't fit into this slot, sorry, go look
Mhm.
someplace else.
Yeah, definitely. And I realized I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, but I'm Sarah Sutter and I work on the international admissions team. So I
Mm.
will say, from an international admissions standpoint, we're absolutely happy to help you as well. I'll put up our email address, but if anybody has any more questions about this topic or just admissions in general, we're happy to help you. So, do you have any scholarships or assistantships available? I know that's a big question for many of our international students because it's so expensive usually to study in the US.
We do, we do.
Mhm.
I will be the first to say these are competitive. So, but for sure, reach out, apply, and
Mhm.
we take a look at every student and we try to see what's possible. We aim to support you as much as we can. I would say in general, what we tend to offer is alternating semester scholarships, so that if we have GAs, then it would be typically 1 out of 2 semesters
Mhm.
within a program, and that applies whether it's a 3-year program, a 1-year program, a 2-year program. It tends to be alternating.
Mhm.
The other thing is that our assistantships are typically, there's a tuition waiver associated with that, and then there's also the working GA stipend,
Mhm.
and those, because our programs are very intensive for the professional programs, landscape, urban, and architecture. Sorry, and the urban design program is not a professional program in the same way,
Mhm.
but it has a lot of credit hours associated with it. And so we tend to cap those assistantships at 10 hours.
Okay.
But that said, if we understand that you're doing well in the program, there are other opportunities to gain additional employment on campus. And so we're aware of that. Our college employs quite a number of student employees. And so we try to find ways to provide supplemental employment beyond the GA, even if that's not part of the GA offer itself. And of course, those, we can't guarantee those, but
Right.
it's certainly something that we're conscious of, that if we're hiring, we're looking to see, okay, do we have a great applicant who's an international student who we're funding for 1 semester and has a gap the other semester? How can we help bridge that gap to a certain extent?
Perfect.
So
Thank
we're
you.
very mindful of those issues, I think.
Yeah. So,
And the other thing is that there's also the CPT opportunities.
oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And so,
Definitely.
students who are interested in more information about that, again, we can discuss those things.
Yeah, perfect. So, what kind of careers can students have with either an urban design or landscape architecture degree?
Right, and I'll talk a little bit as well about the urban emphasis because,
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that when we were titling this talk, we couldn't make the title
Yeah.
too long, but we really have three
Mhm,
masters that are offered there. It's the urban design, it's landscape, and it's also the Masters of Architecture with urban emphasis.
mhm,
And so, of course, for architects who, and I will say there's a bit of crossover with all of the careers that those students may wind up moving into. So if you have an architecture degree, of course, you can work in an architecture firm. If you've done an urban emphasis focus, then it's more likely or there's more opportunities for you to be involved in urban design projects. And I mean, that is what I wound up doing with my architecture degree. I
mhm,
actually took some classes in landscape architecture because I was interested in that scale of the built environment.
mhm,
And I wound up working on a major waterfront development project in Canada. So I'm from Canada originally, and uh, the city that I grew up in had railway yards that were at the junction of the two rivers in the core of the city. And when the railway moved out, we had this huge, vast area of land that was opened up, and that became really the new urban park marketplace meeting point for the city, the Forks. So, that is a project that someone with a landscape background, an urban emphasis background, or an urban design background might wind up working on. I
mhm,
would say typically our students wind up working in an architecture office, in an urban design office, a landscape office, but then sometimes they wind up working as well in the public sector. So they could be working in a planning office, they could be working as well with a community nonprofit. So they
mm,
could be working with a neighborhood coalition group, doing work that's about empowering communities in that nonprofit environment. Or again, that can also be in the public sector for those kinds of issues around community development, community engagement. So sometimes it leans more heavily towards the design of how things are laid out and how street networks come together and everything down to the trees that are selected and the paving patterns, to really looking at it more from that cultural dimension, from sort of
mhm,
saying, well, how can we empower this community? How can we assess community needs? How can we really look at the economics effects of doing these things, and then work more closely at the policy level and the consultation level to make sure that communities are being adequately supported. So, and that can be more about doing consultations, writing reports, and really advocating for various policies.
mhm,
So, I think those are kind of two different viewpoints on it. Students
mhm.
who have a landscape background might also become more involved with environmental agencies.
Perfect. And then what kind of skills do students learn throughout this program since sometimes they might decide to transfer to another kind of career? What kind of skills would they get that might be applicable elsewhere as well?
Oh gosh. Oh, well, I mean, I could say the very specific skills, right, that
Mhm,
have to do with digital communication,
mhm,
drawing, etc. But I really think it's more the problem solving skills, the ability to look at uh, a wide number of issues that have in design we call it wicked problems, problems where it's not like you ever get to a final solution. You have to bring in so many different complex factors and then try to figure out how you weigh and balance these things in order to come up with something
mhm,
that can be effective. And I think we really train that mentality, that way of thinking, in an extremely effective way. So even if you don't wind up specifically in a design discipline, you have those problem solving skills that make you a very strategic thinker. And I think that ability to think strategically is really, really important in the world that we're facing today with
yep,
problems that are extremely complex. I also think that the fact that the students are working together in an environment where there are these interdisciplinary views is extremely valuable, because too often graduate education, it can be very siloed. So
mhm,
the fact that the students are there working with students who are in allied but distinct disciplines creates that understanding of how you work in teams.
perfect. And just our last question here, since we're running out of time. If students are interested in finding out more about these programs or the School of Architecture in general, where can they find that?
So they can go to our website,
Mhm.
which is www.kent.edu/CAED. Or they can, and so you can find all the information about all these programs. You can also reach out directly to our grad programs at CAED grad programs at kent.edu. I'll see if I can put that.
Mhm. Perfect.
Connect. Oh, it says I need to connect my YouTube
Oh,
account to
I got
join
it.
the live chat, so I'm not
You
going to be
said
able to do that right
CAED
now.
grad
But
programs
yeah,
at Kent
CAED
Edu.
all caps,
Mhm.
and then grad programs
Perfect. Okay.
at kent.edu.
Yeah, so feel free to reach out if you need anything. Thank you very much to our viewers for joining us today, and thank you, Sharon, for being my special guest. So,
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. And
yes.
sorry if there are any questions that I wasn't able to answer.
Mhm.
Please reach out. We'd be happy to talk to you, and you can also reach out to me directly.
Perfect. Have a great day.
Okay. Have a great
Bye.
day. Bye bye.